since 1986. But now, there are answers.
It could very well be physical evidence of an extraterrestrial origin.
And later, a little boy's special bond with dolphins leads to a miracle.
An alien craft hurtling through space at 1,000,000 miles an hour crashes to Earth. Debris is scattered over a desolate landscape. The military moves in and retrieves the evidence, covering up their tracks. But this isn't a story about Roswell, New Mexico. It's a remote place called Height 611 in eastern Siberia, and Sightings is there to investigate. Many UFO sightings have occurred in clusters called flaps, and ufologists charge that military bases are the object of alien reconnaissance, especially bases where nuclear weapons are stored. In recent years, sightings have occurred near military installations in New Mexico, Nevada, and Florida. The U.S. military base in Bentwaters, England, a nuclear repository for NATO, was the site of a series of UFO sightings and power outages over several days in late December 1980. We are now learning these encounters are not limited to the West. A series of sightings over the Siberian cities of Vladivostok and Dolnogorsk have some convinced that extraterrestrial spies are surreptitiously observing military installations in the former Soviet Union. Vladivostok is home to the Russian fleet, including nuclear-powered submarines.
It is a place where UFOs are sighted very frequently and where similar phenomena occur.
Alexander Rempel is president of the Vladivostok Association of Ufologists. An engineer and former military officer, Rempel has amassed a catalog of local sightings.
This is a panoramic view of Vladivostok. In broad daylight, people suddenly saw a bright flash up in the sky, and this glowing sphere rose up. One passerby had a camera and shot this object.
This photograph of what appears to be a strange three-toed footprint was shot near a Vladivostok military installation.
The traces left by these unusual beings are found at the sites of well-guarded military units. This is where radioactive waste from Russia is kept.
A few miles away from Vladivostok, near the small mining town of Dolnogorsk, a UFO crashed on this hilltop in 1986. The site, known only by its height, Height 611, is littered with strange debris and is considered to be one of the most significant UFO locations in all of Russia.
The sphere was red, it was flying straight and then sharply fell down.
I saw a fire balloon fly from this site and fall there on the snow.
After that, a fire started. It burned for 1 hour.
The first person to reach the scene was biologist and Academy of Sciences Meteorite Commission member Valery Duzhilny.
Something was burning. This could have been a meteorite, but meteorites do not cause fires. When I climbed up to this place, the snow was deep. There I saw a place which left a great impression on me. There was no snow, it just evaporated. I saw the remains of a burnt tree and the remains of metallic spheres.
Samples of charred metal gathered at the site attracted nationwide attention. Analysis was done by Russia's most prestigious academies.
Whatever remained at the site itself had such unusual properties.
Paul Stonehill, head of the Russian Ufology Research Center headquartered in the United States, has examined many of the samples from Height 611.
The mesh itself had something very strange, very unusual, tiny filaments. And inside those filaments, quartz filaments, one could find yet other filaments or nettings, gold nettings, 7 microns thick. I mean, a human hair is 56 microns. Now, we have no technology to insert gold filaments of that size into quartz filaments. What they could be used for remains an enigma.
It's an enigma that continues to draw serious attention from Russia's top scientific researchers.
Their Academy of Sciences has had an ongoing public study of UFOs since the 1970s.
George Knapp is an investigative journalist. He is frustrated by the seeming lack of interest in UFOs by American academics.
Here, the people like Carl Sagan say, you can't study UFOs, there's nothing to study, there's no physical evidence. Well, that's baloney, and the Russians are proving that. Their Academy of Sciences, the most respected scientific organization in that nation, has been studying it for decades. They do what scientists are supposed to do. They take samples, they conduct experiments, they dig in the soil, they check for radiation, and they've come up with some fairly amazing results.
In the case of samples collected by scientists at Height 611, the results are startling.
It could very well be physical evidence of an extraterrestrial origin. That was the conclusion of the initial scientific team that went to the site. There were strange alloys in there that couldn't be readily identified. Rare earth metals in combinations that have never been seen of a natural origin.
Here we can see the results of our tests. The sample contains elements such as lanthanum, nickel, and some others. But most importantly, it contains the element promethium. The element promethium is artificial. It cannot be found on the Earth.
Human subject testing also took place. In a controlled study, physicians and medical researchers examined those who had worked at Height 611 in the days following the UFO incident.
Samples of blood, blood pressure and pulse were taken. For the group that went to the top of Height 611, the number of red blood cells, the differential blood count was altered, and the amount of elements in the blood rose. In the meantime, the control group's blood test stayed normal. I believe that either alien machinery or a spaceship fell down and crashed. I think that otherwise it cannot be explained.
Doctors and researchers inside Russia continue their investigation, while a handful of American experts are still having difficulty convincing our own scientists of the importance of Height 611.
Height 611 is extremely important to pay attention to. I'm glad that somebody actually went to that Height 611 and brought out the information, because the heights we could reach with that information are still unknown to us.
Our crew returned with this microscopic metal fragment entrusted to us by our Russian contacts. Analysis of this crucial bit of evidence will take many months. We'll bring you the results of our findings on a future episode. Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. The defeat of communism in the former Soviet Union has had wide-ranging consequences. For our Sightings investigative team, it has meant unprecedented access to secret documents and exclusive interviews about one of the most controversial UFO sightings in history. In the first of a series of reports from inside Russia, our search for the truth about a mysterious place known as the M Triangle. The Republic of Russia is the heart of the new Commonwealth of Independent States that was once the Soviet Union. On a daily basis, new information is released to the people of this country about the previous government's clandestine activities. One of the most unlikely activities was a well-organized government effort to research UFO phenomena. And today, that activity is spoken about openly at the Russian Space Center, especially by those who have been close to the Russian space program, like former Colonel Marina Popovich.
We are presently standing at the Cosmonaut Training Center of Russia. It is where all the cosmonauts are still trained, even today. Some of the training includes the proper protocol in cosmonauts dealing with UFOs. As a colonel, I used to be a terrible skeptic, but when I see the government programs dealing with UFOs, I can't ignore this evidence. I've seen photos pilots have taken of saucers attacking planes. We're also now aware of recurring landing sites. I have absolutely no doubt that UFOs exist. It is impossible that in a universe this large, that's expanding so quickly with new stars and planets being formed, that we are a unique planet that sustains life.
A team of Sightings researchers set out to uncover new information about the Soviet government's UFO research efforts. Information that had been long suppressed was coming to light. Even as our investigation began, a guard involved in a routine examination of our credentials was eager to tell us about his own UFO experiences.
1.5 years ago, I was standing guard here at Lenin's tomb in Red Square when I got a message over the radio. There was a UFO flying over Spassky Tower. Come quickly. When I arrived, I looked, but it had gone away. But there was definitely an object hovering above the tower for several minutes, one militiaman said. In the old days, we would be frightened to talk of such things. But today, there is an openness. In fact, there is even a TV show on now about such things.
Once a week, Russians tune their televisions to UFO, Unannounced Visit, one of the most popular programs in the country. It deals with UFO mysteries, and its host is Alexander Miachekov, a respected journalist and ufologist. It was from Alexander that we received our first information about the one UFO story that has captured the imagination of all Russia for the past 3 years.
We have a very interesting and mysterious area around the city of Perm. The incidents that happened in that area are hard to believe, so unbelievable that it is hard to compare that area to any other area of anomaly. That area is called M Triangle. The journalist Pavel Muhartov has been there, and I'll tell you, he had unbelievable experiences there and developed new, almost superhuman abilities after visiting the triangle. It's absolutely fantastic.
We visited with Pavel Muhartov, the journalist who first broke this story of the M Triangle. He's a man with no formal scientific training, but he believes he encountered mysterious forces in the M Triangle zone that gave him new abilities and knowledge. The knowledge that would eventually lead him to the Russian space program.
I grew up a slight man. My health was never good. I was even kicked out of the Russian military because I was too frail.
This one here is proof that he was discharged from the army for health reasons.
After I was discharged from the military, I worked for a newspaper as a reporter. I started reading letters about the M Triangle zone.
He found documents in archives that one of the KGB agents started to write reports to his superiors that strange phenomena started to appear.
There were many UFO sightings, sudden insanity, and dangerous levels of radiation. My editor sent me there to cover the story. Wild feelings came over me, strange photos were taken, and many in the group fell ill.
These are the photos taken at night. That's what they saw during the night, flying and hovering above them.
For me, the M Triangle story is good. I developed great knowledge about aerospace and about physics, and my health improved. I quit the newspaper and was immediately accepted into the Soviet space program. The M Triangle changed my life. I am no longer slight. Now I am a cosmonaut.
The M Triangle is an area considered to be a hotbed of UFO activity. It is located in a remote area 600 miles east of Moscow in the Ural Mountains. Eyewitnesses have reported strange craft, mysterious light phenomena, and encounters of the third kind with translucent beings. There are even journals and books devoted to the ongoing sightings in the M Triangle.
When Muhartov first wrote about it, I was skeptical. It was too obvious that everyone who lived in the area saw all this extraterrestrial activity. Many suggest that the area is high in mercury deposits, and this is causing hallucinations. But could it be, to the extent that people are seeing signs and letters in the sky? There must be something there.
Before our own sightings investigation at the M Triangle, we stopped at the Commonwealth Ufological Center, a government agency on the outskirts of Moscow dedicated to UFO research.
Each day we process 15 to 20 UFO reports at our offices, including those from the M Triangle. We know of the dangers of this zone and that science has not been able to establish the truth about UFOs in the zone. But that doesn't rule out the health hazards. My advice to you is to get in and get out of that dangerous zone. It's just not safe.
Working in Russia was made more difficult by the lack of provisions we found available. This is a typical grocery store in Russia during business hours, a grim reminder of the upheaval still going on in the new republics. There may be a free market now, but red cabbage is still too expensive for most shoppers. The harsh conditions bear silent witness to the character of the Russian people who endure this hardship on a daily basis. After a 2.5-hour jet flight into the Ural Mountains, the research team flew an additional 90 minutes by helicopter. We agreed to comply with the government's request that we remain in the M Triangle for 24 hours only. The government warned us of dangers there. People who had reportedly gone mad, lost their eyesight, or disappeared completely. We first landed in a small village just outside the M Triangle to see if we could find eyewitnesses to the bizarre phenomena in the region. What we found was a village out of the 1890s with people who told stories right out of Star Wars.
I was walking my grandmother home when we both saw a red flash coming from that zone. Lots of my friends have seen that too.
Mysterious things that fly in the sky here are common. I don't even listen anymore to such old news.
I've seen these saucers numerous times. To say that they are nonsense is nonsense. We know what we see.
We found no one who had been adversely affected by the reported paranormal activity. We then proceeded on the final leg of our journey into the M Triangle, accompanied by Emil Bakurin, ufologist and author of the Russian bestseller, UFOs, Explanation of the Unexplained.
I've written a book about the zone because there have been so many strange experiences here by believers and skeptics alike. Near our tent, one group saw translucent fireballs that chased them into the woods and burned them seriously. Only 17 meters from here, a glowing object stunned a research group. One of the men later committed suicide. We often see groups of UFOs fly past this field. Sometimes they disappear, sometimes they land and leave radiation.
The UFOs sighted here have yet to be fully explained. The strange light phenomena, however, are thought to be the result of geomagnetic anomalies evident in the area, known to scientists as lightning balls.
We've used very sensitive equipment that measures and reacts to electricity in a battery from as far as 100 meters. But the same piece of measuring equipment wouldn't react to those energetic balls that we've observed. Therefore, we conclude that the energy is not of an electromagnetic nature.
The light phenomena are best seen at night. Our investigative team brought special night vision cameras, and after several hours, they photographed what can only be described as startling.
George, did we see a satellite? What do you think that was?
No, a satellite came out to look like this.
What was it?
I don't know. It cannot do the trajectories like this in the sky, like this, and like this.
The strange streak of light never reappeared. A frame-by-frame analysis offers more detail, but gives little insight into its origin. It may have been a shooting star or a satellite. However, there is little debate among the Russian UFO community that something beyond rational explanation is occurring in this remote region. And there is no better proof than Pavel Martov, the man who claims he gained secret knowledge that transformed him from journalist to cosmonaut number 152 after visiting the M Triangle. Most of the people we talked with in Russia believe UFOs are operating in the M Triangle. However, off the record, a few scientists offered another possibility. They claim that the Soviet government has been secretly testing a new breed of weapons called psychotronic weapons that immobilize an enemy by creating realistic mass hallucinations. They suggest that eyewitnesses in the M Triangle may have actually seen something that wasn't really there, because they were unwitting participants in a top-secret military experiment. For years, ufologists have been collecting reports from pilots in the military who claim to have had contact with UFOs. Unfortunately, these reports remain unconfirmed because the pilots are reluctant to come forward. But now, one former military pilot is talking. In Russia, Maxim Cherbakov was so convinced he'd been fired on by an alien spacecraft, he went to court to prove it. 2 years ago, a pilot in Russia came forward and told of a frightening UFO encounter. Risking ridicule, Maxim Cherbakov was determined to tell what he maintains is the true story of his bizarre experience. At 19, Cherbakov was one of the rising stars in the Soviet Military Flight Academy and became the Russian equivalent of a Top Gun. His flying record was impeccable until August 1991. Then, on 2 separate occasions, he had strange mechanical malfunctions in his jet aircraft. On one occasion, he was forced to eject. An investigation of that incident concluded that Cherbakov had acted calmly and rationally. But 12 days later, a third incident would change Cherbakov's life forever.
20th August, second shift. I made 2 flights with my commander, and third flight I made on my own. I gained an altitude of 3,900 meters. Then suddenly, I saw a ball in front of me, about 20 degrees to the right.
He watched the object for several seconds. Then, as it came toward him, Cherbakov tried to radio the base. The light from the UFO was blinding.
A sense of unexplainable fear came over me. On the back of my head, I began experiencing warmth. I felt as if someone was present and watching me. My movements were under control, controlled by someone other than me.
Cherbakov claims the reddish-yellow object started maneuvering around the aircraft. For several minutes, it kept up with the jet's airspeed and mimicked its movements. During that time, Cherbakov was unable to communicate with his base commander. The radio emitted only a squealing sound.
Pilot Cherbakov's description of the UFO moving relative to his own airplane is really quite common.
Dr. Richard Haynes has documented over 3,000 pilot sightings of UFOs.
I have thousands and thousands of cases of pilots in daylight encounters with structured objects in the sense of having three-dimensional mass, in the sense of having aerodynamic kinds of flight behavior relative to the aircraft. And so what he describes here fits in very nicely to what I have from hundreds of other pilots around the world.
Suddenly, in rapid-fire succession, the generator in Cherbakov's jet failed. The instruments indicated a fire on board, and the cockpit filled with smoke. The base commander ordered Cherbakov to eject.
I began arguing with the commander because the plane was still above the residential area. My altitude began to drop rapidly. I had to pull the plane out of a nosedive. At the altitude of 1,000 meters, I finally cleared the residential area and I ejected. 4 seconds later, the plane exploded.
Cherbakov landed safely in a field and was rescued an hour later by a military helicopter. While officials combed the wreckage of the jet, Cherbakov was examined at a military hospital. An intensive 3-day interrogation followed.
The interrogation was conducted with a sense of total distrust toward me. Right from the start, they told me that the first, the second, and now the third incident is all your own doing.
Cherbakov was also interrogated by the KGB, who did not believe his story and charged him with insubordination and sabotage under the International Terrorism Act. Cherbakov claims the KGB threatened that if he did not tell the truth, he would be brought to trial, found guilty of terrorism, and shot by a firing squad. Vladimir Azhaja heads the Russian Center for the Study of UFOs, housed in the Ministry of the Interior in Moscow. Dr. Azhaja is considered one of the world's foremost experts on UFO phenomena and has studied Cherbakov's case.
We concluded that Maxim has a normal, healthy psyche and is not inclined to fantasies.
Retired Major General Albert Stubblebine is a former commanding general of U.S. Army intelligence. He witnessed and documented a hypnosis session conducted with Cherbakov by an American psychiatrist.
As she was taking him into the trance, he changed from this terrorized, fear-ridden kid into a pilot. Sitting in the cockpit, sitting in the seat, sitting with the controls, relating what was going on. There was a change in the individual.
Anybody can fabricate. The question is, was he fabricating? And he struck me as a person who, in that situation, was not fabricating. Whatever it was that he was saying, he truly believed had happened to him. Maxime really believed he had not done anything wrong, in fact had done the right thing, and desperately wanted this sorted out.
Although affidavits to that effect were presented at his court-martial hearing, the court still blamed Cherbakov for the destruction of his aircraft. But the military prosecutor admits that some of the evidence of Cherbakov's innocence was very convincing.
From the beginning, I had doubts about the truthfulness of Cherbakov's statement. But after questioning his mother, his comrades, and his superiors, I became convinced that Cherbakov had an encounter with a UFO.
In January 1992, the case against Maxim Cherbakov was dropped. But despite this vindication, he was not welcomed back into the military.
There is no training for pilots to deal with such encounters. The older pilots told me that a lot of encounters happen, but they don't speak about them. I feel that I'm missing something from my soul that I want very much. My love for the planes and flying has remained and will continue to remain.
Did Maxim Cherbakov see a UFO? We may never know the answer, but one thing is clear. Maxim Cherbakov ejected only after he saw that his jet would avoid populated areas below. There is now a movement underway in Russia to award Cherbakov with a medal for heroism. UFO researcher Richard Haynes, up to 15% of all pilots, both military and commercial, have reported some kind of contact with a UFO. Haynes believes the actual number could be quite a bit higher, since countless pilots are understandably reluctant to come forward.
Coming up.